As always, I am one of your hosts, Brody, and I'm here with my co-host, Destiny.
Hi.
We have a lot of fun things planned for today, but first,
big news, chat. Look what I got. I got engaged, chat. Look. I might put a picture in. I might not. I edit, so I make my own rules, but I might blur it out just for shits and giggles. But I did get engaged on Wednesday, so I'm a motherfucking fiance.
Fiance.
Because I didn't want my headphones to fly off. Because the other day when I was trying to dance and I had my camera on, my headphones flew off and took my glasses. And then it knocked my phone off the stand. I fucked up everything. And Gracie was like, "What just happened?"
What just happened?
Earth. I took out Earth in one swift motion. It was not good. My microphone picked that shit up like it was like a meteor strike. Like, it probably sounded crazy.
Yeah.
But anyways,
we do have a lot of fun things planned for today. But first, we are going to start out with our tarot pool.
As usual, I'm using my Insomnia tarot deck by Orlabird. Ooh.
Yes. I am also still using the Tarot of the Divine deck as well.
We don't get too crazy, but then occasionally we switch it up. Because I think my first episode I did, my Call of the Wild Unknown. My bad. That was wrong.
I've been really enjoying using this deck for our podcast because it's my personal deck that I only use for me.
This one, so. Oh shit!
Oh shit! You already got some? Are we doing like we did last week and doing the one card and then bottom, or just
I figure we might as well. Interesting. Okay.
Let's see. I haven't had any jumps.
I got like two of the same family. So crazy. Let me do my little reading chat. Not the giggle.
Whoa. So interesting. Okay. Jesse, would you like to do the honors of going first this time?
Sure. So my first card I got was the King of Wands. And upright means authority, mental clarity, discipline, intellectual power, self-discipline, and structure. Which is funny. I've just gotten myself on a schedule because I'm about to start doing my data analytics classes and, not working right now. So I got time to commit to things. And then my card I pulled from the bottom was the Knight of Wands. Oh, wait. Can I read?
Maybe.
Knight. Okay. I was like, what? Sorry. Can't read.
What?
Don't worry. Knight of Wands, inspired action, courage, excitement, hot-tempered, agility, and impulsiveness. So I think it's me trying to work on all of those things because that's what I'm kind of trying to do with a schedule. Because if I do not have a schedule for myself, I just don't do anything. And then I get mad about it because I'm like, I've literally done nothing. But if I don't plan to do things, I just don't. So, a snake eating its own tail, if you will. Trying to not do that.
If you will.
Trying to como se dice, use mindfulness and our brain to do things instead of being a bum. Como se dice bum in Espanol? But so yeah, so this is the Knight of Wands. That's what they look like together.
Ooh, very
Yeah. Same family and everything, so it's interesting.
So, I did in fact pull both major arcana cards.
Okay.
So the card that actually jumped out was the Hermit, which is this card here. Very
Okay.
nice, which is also my birth card.
Period.
So I
Okay.
feel like this might be a message that I need to listen to.
Okay.
Says here, the Hermit represents solitude and leaving responsibilities behind to focus inward. Up in the upright position, introspection, withdrawal, prudence, insight, and meditation.
Okay.
And I feel like that does kind of represents like where I'm at in life. I've been wanting to like pursue a lot of things, but I feel like I'm still at a point where I do still need to focus on myself a lot as well, and really just like fix some of the things that I'm not doing that great at right now. So, I obviously resonate with this card a lot, with it being my birth card and everything. So, very unfortunate. The card that I did get off the bottom though was the Star.
Okay, period.
Very cute. And it says in here, it says the star is a symbol of hope after a disaster, the need to remain positive after misfortune, to remember that things can get better again. Oh shit. In the upright position, represent hope, serenity, inspiration, insight, and spirituality. And
so when you ask the tarot, pretty much.
When you ask that, sometimes the tarot really just calls you out in ways that you don't necessarily
Sometimes you ask
want
the tarot,
to be.
the tarot said, "Oh, finally! I've been waiting for this one."
Because, not to get too much into this on the podcast, but I've been having some feelings recently, especially with your recent engagement, with Matt and Danielle's recent engagement. I have been feeling very like down, a little jealous, not gonna lie. So I feel like this is kind of calling me out of, I still need to focus on myself, and maybe that's why that this isn't happening yet. But things will get better if I continue to work on myself. So,
which, not to also expose you, but in other readings we've also done, that has been a reoccurring thing of like, remember, you got to get to this spot where you're like good with yourself, and you're like, okay.
Yeah.
And then you do another reading, and it's like, so anyways, did you hear me? I said.
So anyways, did you hear me? I would have said a second ago.
I just want to make sure you remember that, basically.
Oh, and then this is what they look like together, which they do have a very similar kind of like aesthetic.
Yeah, which it's kind of crazy because it's like, it's almost like the opposite, because one's like hooded kind of in the dark, and the other one's just like completely
in the light and everything. Yeah, which whenever I do tarot, if I read the bottom card, I've always kind of seen that as like a what can be type thing.
Right, like it's like a future pool thing.
And almost, so like I usually read jumpers, and so any card that jumps out is what the cards I read, and then I'll flip the deck over, read the bottom as kind of like a this can be where this thing goes if you let it. And so that to me really stands out as like, things can get really good for me if I, listen to the fucking guides and work on my fucking self.
Yeah. So, they be calling you out sometimes. It'd be like that.
Yeah, I don't know how much I appreciated that, but
it said, since you didn't hear me live on the podcast.
Funny. So understood.
Heard and heard.
On that. Heard and heard. Getting on
chapstick,
that.
My lips dry as hell.
But yeah, so today for the podcast, I thought it'd be a really fun idea to read some spooky creepypasta stories for you guys.
Shit, just karate shot the microphone. Sorry.
So, unfortunately, you guys will have to bear with me. My voice is very scratchy and gross today, so I might have to get drink every so often.
We don't have to take some sips
because these are relatively long stories. I have two longer ones and then two short ones. We are going to be starting out with one of the longer ones though. Which this first one that I'm going to start with is called Get Comfy, y'all.
It's the sweater. This would have made me look
Oh
like
yeah.
grandma. Sorry.
So
Anyways.
to jump in, this first story is called "Don't Let Them In." It is by Maddie Kate on Creepypasta. If you guys would like to go check it out yourselves. So here we go. It says, oh, also before we get into this, I did want to a general thing, because some of the creepypastas in general do deal with a lot of like heavy stuff a lot of the time.
Oh, yeah,
so if
yeah.
you're not in the right mindset to hear these kind of things,
we'll have a warning before this, but this is the second warning.
Yeah. Damn. I think you need to back up from your desk, buddy.
I think you need to clean my desk off, man. What the fuck?
Oh, dude, me too.
God, that was a plate.
But yeah, as a general thing though, if you guys aren't in the right mindset to hear these kind of things right now, please feel free to click off. We will see you guys next week when we are doing some different stuff.
Yeah, you can rewatch. You can rewatch the other 2 podcasts we've posted.
Yeah,
and if they're not funny, be on the lookout for the 4th one. It won't be funny either.
It won't be funny either. But yeah, be so well, y'all, and here we go.
Right.
Addiction took our mother slowly, rocked her through it, and sung her to sleep, sunk deep into the mattress on her bed. When her back teeth fell out, she left them on the side of the bathtub. I was 7, and I kept them in a matchbox. The missing pieces of her kept safe so that she wouldn't be lost forever. So maybe one day we could put her back together. Our house fell around us, and we tried our best to raise ourselves. The ceilings had water damage, the bottom stairs had dry rot, and in the winters the radiators bled rust. But it was still our house, and Annie made it a home. My sister Annie mothered me. With lopsided band-aids on bruised knees and lukewarm microwave meals, she told me ghost stories and didn't mind when I crawled into her bed later on, too scared to sleep alone. She taught me to dance barefoot on the living room carpets, music channel on full volume on the TV, shaking our pre-adolescent hips. So sorry. One of the bad things about this reading is I cannot pronounce words, y'all, so bear with me.
It's okay, I'd be sad if I was reading, so it doesn't matter.
She always let me shower first so that I could enjoy the hot water and never complained when she had to make do with the cold. She brushed my hair every day before school, even when I screamed and hit her when she caught the tangles. Annie was dark-haired like her father, whoever he had been, but I was blonde. Annie was desperate to be blonde too, like Marilyn Monroe, like Mom. I think she thought it would make them closer, remind Mom less of her dad. I'd give anything for her to have her hands in my hair one more time, even if it hurt. She moved to New York when I turned 18 and never came back. I still dream about her sometimes. Keeping up with our mother was impossible, and we learned from a young age that we would always be left behind. It didn't make it any easier. When she was drinking again, she was radiant and would wake us up at 3 a.m. with pancakes dripping in cherry syrup. Sometimes when the weather was right and she'd had enough being drunk alone. She would call our school up and tell them we had both come down with summer sickness and we'd drive to the beach instead. I remember being 9 years old in the backseat of the car, coming home after school. Coming home after one of our ocean days, sucking the salt from my fingers. Annie had just dyed her hair blonde, her best friend Jane helping her bend over the kitchen sink. From behind, I couldn't tell who was the mother and who was the daughter. Radio up and windows down, blowing the sky inside. When she was drinking heavily, she'd be out all night. Hair piled up like a beauty queen. Eyes glazed over and ringed with glitter and black. Sometimes she'd be gone a day or two. She would never give us advance notice. One day we'd just wake up to an empty house, with the fridge packed full and a post-it note on its door, complete with a smear of Mom's lipstick in the outline of a kiss. She'd tell us she'd be back soon. Some days she'd bring guys home, filling the table with beer cans and ashtrays, smoke up to the ceiling. Mom lost in the haze. We'd sleep with pillows over our heads, trying to drown out the music they would blast all night. and wake up to strangers at our kitchen table in the morning asking where we kept the coffee. When mom drank too little, she fell apart. She wouldn't buy food, and the refrigerator went bare. She'd chain smoke, leaving cigarette burns on the wallpaper up the stairs, like the walls were sick and decaying. She barely slept, walking around with blue half moons under her eyes, knuckles raw. She would scream at the slightest thing. I remember once when I spilled a glass of juice on the couch, she looked over at me with dead eyes and dragged me off the carpet and then took every single cushion off the couch and laid it in the backyard and set them on fire. Whoa.
What the
Annie went to watch a while from the window and then sat next to me on the floor, backs pressed against the skeleton of the seats, head resting in the crater of my collarbones. It was the worst when mom drank too much. She'd laugh too loudly and too long at anything and everything, until her mouth started to shake and she began to cry into her cereal at the breakfast table. Annie shut down when mom was like this, going somewhere deep inside herself where no one could hurt her. She'd stay up all until the morning watching old black and white movies on TV, whispering the lines she knew by heart like prayers. When I was 5 years old, I'd cry when I'd find mom passed out on the bed. Sure, she would never wake up. Annie would wipe my tears and tell me she was only sleeping, like the princess in my old storybook. We'd sit on mom's bed together and wait for her to wake up. When we were older, I was the one who would pick mom up off the bathroom floor again and again, and Annie would put her to bed, smoothing her hair off her face, wiping the vomit from her mouth, and changing her clothes if she pissed herself. Watching them then, there was no doubt that Annie was the mother now. It was October, and I was 13, Annie 16. It was a Wednesday night, and mom had been gone for 2 days. She called us that morning from a payphone, voice slurring, telling us she was having the best time with all her new friends and that she hoped we were doing fine. When she asked me if I was having a good birthday, I hung up on her. My birthday had been the day before. Annie had given me a pile of presents, strawberry lip gloss and glittery nail polishes. I didn't ask where she'd gotten the money from. I didn't care. We'd taken the bus to the beach with Jane and ate the birthday cake she had made for me, sand getting into the frosting. It tasted like sweetness in the sea, and I savored every bite and scrape of sugar against my teeth. We watched the sun go down, Annie snapping grainy photos on her Nokia as I blew out my candles, wishing over and over that mom wouldn't come home, that she'd stay gone this time. But that Wednesday night, Annie and I weren't speaking. Anger hung heavy between us, seeping through the floorboards. It began when she tripped at the bottom of the stairs. We'd both laughed, Annie throwing her head back, the gap between her front teeth catching the light. When I'd bent to pick her up, I felt her breath warm against the freckles on my cheeks. I let go of her arms and she fell again, hitting the floor and grinning, shaking her hair from her face. Her breath was heavy with whiskey. I couldn't start picking her up too. Couldn't watch her fall again and again. Just like mom, I knew she'd never get back up. It stared down at her, blonde hair hanging over her eyes, and all I could see was our mother. Then I was running, feet slamming the hallway like heartbeats turned loose. I'd run for the kitchen and tipped every bottle we had down the sink, shoving Annie back as she fought to stop me, catching liquor on her fingers as it fell. She grabbed my shoulders and made me drop the very last bottle. It smashed between us on the floor, glass shards shining like we dragged the stars out of the sky and broken them, like pieces we could never put back. Outside, through the windows, the sky turned pale gold, the clouds a mess of pink and cream smeared across the horizon. I cried then, watching my sister on her knees picking up the pieces. That was Annie, always trying to fix things even when it was too late. The smell of food dragged me from my room, my stomach turning traitor inside my ribcage. Annie was cooking pasta, real food, not made in a microwave. She'd set the table, Tammy Wynette singing softly from the CD player. Annie gently swinging her hips as she stirred the tomato sauce, rich and warm. As we ate in silence, I forgave her more with every bite. Mom never cooked dinner, never remembered my favorite had been spaghetti since I was a kid, and never stayed sober long enough to sit up at a table. Annie wasn't Mom. We were washing the dishes when we first heard it. A moth was crawling down from the inside of the pan, and I cracked the window to let it out into the dark. From the backyard came a faint sound. I tilted my head to listen as it was coming from far off, crying. I figured it was Mika, the 2-year-old next door, having a tantrum loud enough for us to catch, or maybe even Lucky Strike, the cat that belonged to the junkies down the street, begging for food like he did sometimes. I always wanted to feed him when he came around, winding over my ankles, but Annie always stopped me, saying once you started giving, they never stopped taking. Looking back, I don't think she was talking about the cat. Annie flipped the Christmas lights strung up on the porch, and we'd sat out on the. Sorry, Annie flipped the Christmas lights up around the porch, and we sat on the plastic beach chairs watching the skies. When we were little, we'd sit outside, and Annie would tell me the names of all the constellations and the stories of how they came to be hung up in the night sky. I had to grow up before I realized she made them all up as she went along. It was a game we still like to play now, making up ridiculous stories for the shapes we could pick out. Ah, yes, that one there is the Coors Light. It got there when God dropped it out of his convertible window and never picked it up, she said, nodding sagely and hiding her smile. Ah, of course, I said, waving my hands and pointing up past the power lines. Right next to the ashtray left by the angels on a smoke break. Yeah, they say if you wish on it, all your dreams will come true, said Annie with a grin. Then she stopped laughing, and her voice grew quiet, face tilted up to all those dead stars. Let's wish, Emmy. Let's wish. So we did. The sound of wailing interrupted us. It was closer this time, and definitely human. We turned to one another in confusion. Annie shrugged, and I squinted into the black. It sounded like a baby, lost, tired, and alone.
No.
It must be Mika, I said, slowly getting to my feet. Maybe he walked around the back? Do you want to call Connie and tell her we'll bring him over? Annie didn't reply. I sighed and rolled my eyes. Okay, I guess I'll do everything then. I stepped off the porch, grass soft against my heels. The air smelled like it might rain, fresh and clean and growing. A promise unfulfilled. Annie's voice was strained. I turned to her with a smile. It died on my face when I saw the look on her own. Get inside now. She was staring into the dark, past me, and opening the door with one hand behind her, her fingers fumbling on the latch. I froze, barefoot in the dirt. I'd glimpsed what she was looking at. In the bushes by the back fence, someone was crouching, with their knees tucked up neatly under his chin, and his arms wrapped around his legs. His mouth was agape, softly opening and closing as he cried, like a child lost in the dark. No, not like a child. More like someone pretending, mimicking the sound under cover of darkness. Suddenly they straightened their back, snapping upright, face still obscured by shadow. They were tall and slim, extraordinarily thin by human standards. Panic made me move, carried forward by animal instincts left over from a time when people still lived in nature. I was faster than Annie, dragging her inside and slamming the door behind us, hearing it bounce on its hinges as I locked it. We watched as the person slowly approached the house with long, deliberate strides. Annie reached for my hand, holding me tight, and turned me to face her, holding my shoulders. Don't turn around, Emmy. Don't turn around. Instinctively, I started to look over my shoulder into the gloom. Annie grabbed my face hard and shook her head. I knew then she was serious. I'm Her voice cracked, and she cleared her throat, gripping my hand tight enough to hurt, nails digging in, grounding herself. I looked down at our interlocked fingers, both of us born of the same bones. I'm going to call the cops, and everything is going to be. Her voice faltered, stuttering, tears spilled over her lashes. Annie never cried. Your phone's on the porch, she whispered, and bile crawled its way up my throat. Her phone was upstairs, charging. A soft tap, tap, tapping filled the silence. Annie turned wide-eyed to the window. It was the sound of someone's forehead slowly and repeatedly bumping against the glass. Then the blows accelerated, gaining in both speed and strength. Skin meeting glass until they were slamming into the window, hard enough to shake the panes. A moment later, the tapping stopped, and I was about to ask Annie if I could look now when she screamed, followed by the sound of cracking glass and a tremendous crash. Whoever was in the yard had just smashed their face hard enough into the window to shatter. We ran up the stairs 2 steps at a time, skipping the rotted ones out of habit. I turned to look behind me once, and Annie yanked my face back before I could see. The sound of glass breaking echoed behind us as we made it into the bathroom and locked the door. A weak, mewling cry, like that of an infant calling for its mother, filled the hallway, trapped between the walls and the entryways. Annie threw her back against the door, feet jammed up against the bathtub, clutching a knife she had grabbed from the kitchen. I joined her, shoulder to shoulder, and did the same. Slow footsteps started on the stairs, calculated and casual. The crying took on a mocking quality, resembling laughter, arriving in short, shrill bursts of sound, followed by high-pitched giggling, and then silence, only to start again a moment later. The first door on the upstairs floor was my bedroom, and we heard the distinct sound of it slamming open. They were looking for us. What the fuck is going on? I asked Annie, not even bothering to brush away the tears that I couldn't keep from falling. I watched my sister pick herself up off the floor and brace her hands as we heard the sound of the second door slamming open. Mom's room. The next room on the hallway was the bathroom. Annie pulled me to my feet and handed me the knife. I shook my head and pushed it back to her, terrified of what would happen if I had to use it. Annie shoved me and pressed the knife into my hands, thumb pressing hard enough along the edge to draw blood. I watched a winding road of crimson rivulets cascading down her wrist. In spite of the pain, Annie continued pushing the blade into my hands. Finally, I took it from her. Something slammed against the wall that was Mom's room shared with the bathroom. A high-pitched howl followed. I held my breath and felt my heart beating frantically in the base of my throat. I'm going to go get the phone from my room, my sister said. I shook my head dramatically in protest. Before I could say a word, Annie clamped a hand over my mouth. I could taste the blood on her hand, salty and sweet, like the birthday cake by the ocean. Yes, I'm going to go get the phone and I'm going to call the cops. We're going to be okay. I shook my head again. It's the only way, Annie insisted. When I go, I need you to lock the door, and I don't want you to open it for anything or anyone. Not for me, not for anyone. Promise me. I shook my head, and Annie pressed her hand against my mouth, pushing my teeth against my lips so forcefully that it made my eyes water. Promise me, Em. Something smashed in the room next door. Annie brushed the hair from my face and gently tucked it behind my ear. Promise, she mouthed, and unlocked the door as slowly as possible, the bolts scraping gently. I watched the curve of her shoulder disappear into the darkened hall like the moon in the eclipse, and then she was gone. Couldn't move or breathe for a second, and then I slammed the bolt shut as something bounced off the outside of the door. A high-pitched scream ensued, followed by the handle rattling up and down, hard enough to pop a screw loose. I watched it roll towards me on the tiles, and then everything went still. I sat with my back to the door, holding the knife and wishing I was holding Annie's hand instead. The silence continued. For a moment, the only sound was that of my breath slowly filling the room. A voice broke a voice broke the illusion of solitude. Em? A familiar voice came through the door. Startled, I gripped the knife with even more firmly than before. Honey, what's going on? Mom? My voice cracked. Mama, is that you? I wrapped my arms around myself to keep from shaking. Sweetie, it's okay. Just open the door. It's okay. Just let me in. The handle rattled again, gentler this time. Just let me in. It's all okay. She banged impatiently on the door, and I took my handle of the bolt. Honey, I'm sorry. I'm sorry that I missed your birthday. I'm sorry I'm such a terrible mother. Please. Her voice broke and she started to cry. Just let me in, baby. I'm so sorry. I screwed my eyes shut. She sounded so sad and so lost. I just wanted her to hold me like she did when I was a kid. When I'd come in with a scraped knee after falling off the swings. Maybe this time she meant it. Perhaps it would be okay. My hands found its way to the bolt again. My sister's voice came through the door, warm and gentle. Yeah, Emmy, just let us in. It's all okay. My hand froze on the bolt and I tightened my grip on my weapon. Annie never called me by my full name. A hand banged on the door, handle rattling. Emily, let us in. Annie's voice became low and guttural, followed by the same shrill giggles from before. Mom spoke now, pleading, crying, her voice growing louder and louder. Let us in, let us in, let us in. She shouted over and over again, punctuated by her fists on the door. I thought about bedtime stories and all the demons and monsters we pray never crawl out from under our beds. That's not my sister, and you are not my mother, I screamed through the door. Hands over my head, I climbed into the bathtub, curled into the fetal position, and clutched the knife into my chest. I didn't know what it was outside that door, but I knew it wasn't Annie. It wasn't the voice that scolded me whenever I changed the TV channel, the one that sang me happy birthday, the one that told me I was smart even when I got bad grades, the one that read me stories about princesses that never wake up. It wasn't human. Bangs and yells come from downstairs, followed by the footsteps of people running. A low, guttural howl ripped through the house, filling the room until I felt like I was drowning in the sound. And then the door was kicked in. I screamed, covered my eyes, and wanted to die. And a moment later, arms found me, lifted me from the tub, and carried me from the room. I looked at the outside of the door as I was taken downstairs. Its exterior was covered in long, scraping claw marks, stretching to the floor. I found the hallway covered in the soft, downy remains of torn up pillows, making it appear as if it had snowed indoors. I watched the tiny feathers drift slowly as men in uniforms checked each of the rooms that looked like they had been ripped apart by something feral. Excuse me. Outside, police cars and ambulance waited in our driveway. And there, in the middle of it all, was Annie, bathed in blue and red light and glowing in the dark like a neon angel. I threw myself from the officer's shoulders and ran to her. Then I held us both together, broken pieces and all. Standing under all the constellations we'd concocted, muffled screaming came from the ambulance, which rocked occasionally. Annie gently turned my head away, smiling so sadly it made my chest ache. I understood. It turns out there was no demon. No wild animal or bad men were trying to break in. It was just Mom, out of her mind on booze, drugs, and everything in between. Coming to the end of a week-long binge, something had finally broken inside her, and this time we couldn't put her back together no matter how hard we tried. Sometimes you fall one last time and then never get back up. Annie had seen her rail-thin frame in the garden, blood dribbling from her mouth, track marks bulging on her forearms like unmapped roads, desperate for one more hit, one more fix. She'd searched the kitchen for the alcohol I'd thrown away, and when she hadn't found any, she went hunting for the stash hidden in the bathroom. She hadn't wanted me, just the drugs on the other side of the door. She'd been so high she was able to mimic Annie's voice nearly perfectly. The real monsters are the ones that eat you alive slowly, the kind that comes in bottles or in needle, or at the end of a long list of reasons why you can't get out of bed in the morning. Sometimes the monsters are the ones that raise you or love you the most, but it's up to you to not let them in.
Fuck.
See, okay, the reason I chose this one is because I feel like it has a very, really deep meaning to it.
Right. Talk about a fucking
and
plot twist too. God.
and also, as somebody who came from, a life of people being like, abusing
Right.
substances, this one did hit very close to me as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
Holy shit.
it is very scary to see like how crazy these people can be on these things,
Mm-hmm.
and it really makes you think of like the possibilities of like what could happen.
Right. Especially, I think it kind of gives you insight into like, I don't know, like the parts of it I guess you usually don't hear about addiction, which is like how it affects the people that are surrounded by, a
Mm-hmm.
person who is abusing substances, especially when it's like a parent.
Mm-hmm.
It's yeah, dude, that's insane. I wasn't expecting it to be like that. I want to cry right now a little bit.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie.
Fuck.
Yeah, that one like there was a couple moments like reading it. I did have to kind of kind of breathe for a second, and just be like, damn.
Yeah, I definitely
Because
was tearing up during a couple parts because it's like,
yeah,
it's just heavy. That's
well,
heavy.
I was gonna say because what I will say I liked the way that it turned though, of like Annie was still they both were still alive and were able to be reconnected with each other. I was scared that it was going to be one of those things where like her sister died, and so now not only is she having to deal with the loss of her mother after this incredibly long binge, but also the one person who was always there for her.
Right. Yeah, which it's with the creepypastas typically too, with how they do end. It's just typically not.
It's
like
not
that.
very great.
Yeah. So
yeah.
Dude,
genuinely that story does feel almost like a movie to me though.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah.
It's very well written as well. I do want to like commemorate that one is so well written. I think it did
helps
feel
you
very almost like
it a lot.
Yeah, it felt cinematic almost because there were so many like the descriptive like words that they used were so good, and were able to really portray like the feelings that, or like the not only the emotions that they were feeling, but also like the scenery and like the things that they were looking at and experiencing in their life. Genuinely such a good story.
Yeah, very good writing style. I was not expecting that. I'm a little bit shocked.
Yeah.
Like,
I'll say I do think that one is a very good one.
Yeah.
Once again, that one is called Don't Let Them In. If you guys do want to go back and reread it yourselves. The only I feel like I'm not doing these justice enough because I keep stuttering really bad.
It doesn't matter.
But
it's fine.
It is
fine.
Okay. It's getting the point across, so that's all that matters.
Sorry, I'll keep yawning. Let's just be thankful it's not sneezing. That was yesterday. That was hell.
Oh yeah. That's it. Which it is getting pretty late for us right now. So
true.
Yeah, which makes this all the more scary.
Yeah, we get to read all these before we go to bed. Yeah.
Which I do.
Now I'm gonna just cry thinking about that one. I'm
yeah,
like laying there and I'm like, don't let them
in. Not the goofy cry.
Yep.
But I don't know. I think stories like that always get to me though, because it's like whenever you think of like monsters or like scary things, you think of like the demons or like the stuff under your bed or like that's hiding in the closet or whatever. You never think about like real life scary stuff that can happen like that.
Yeah.
And so I feel like that one's just very like, it's very deep and it's very like I don't know.
Well, because it gives you a gloomy kind of feeling the way it starts, and so you're kind of carrying that with you regardless, like through the story, and then it adds a scary aspect to it, and you're like, come on, give them a break, And then as you do it, there's like just this growing kind of like fear as they're telling the story. Ooh. And then after you have the like wrap up of everything, it's like,
oh,
I'm even sadder than when it started. Yep. But yeah, no, that was a very, very well told story. Yeah, wow. Shit. I didn't think it was going to go like this, guys. It's the first
I will
one,
say,
too.
yeah, I will say moving forward, these aren't going to be as like that. These next ones are going to get into more of like actual like creepy pasta stories of like what you're thinking of. So
okay.
Which this next one is our next like longer one. We're gonna finish out with the two shorter ones. This one is called Psychosis by Matt Demersky. If I butchered that name, I do apologize. Okay. Sunday. I'm not sure why I'm writing this down on paper and not on my computer. I guess I've just noticed some odd things. It's not that I don't trust the computer, I just need to organize my thoughts. I need to get it all down, all the details down somewhere. Sorry. I need to get down all the details somewhere objective. Somewhere I know that what I write can't be deleted or changed. Not that that's happened, it's just everything blurs together here. And the fog of memory lends a strange cast to things.
Get a drink.
Excuse me, I'm clearing my throat. I'm starting to feel cramped in this small apartment. Maybe that's the problem. I just had to go and choose the cheapest apartment, the only one in the basement. The lack of windows down here make day and night seem to slip by seamlessly. I haven't been out in a few days because I've been working on this programming project so intensively. I suppose I just wanted to get it done. Hours of sitting and staring at a monitor can make anyone feel strange. I know, but I don't think that's it. I'm not sure when I first started to feel like something was odd. I can't even define what it is. Maybe I just haven't talked to anyone in a while. That's the first thing that crept up on me. Everyone I normally talk to online while I was programmed has been idle. Or they've simply not logged on at all. My instant messages go unanswered. The last email I got from anybody was a friend saying that he talked to me when he got back from the store, and that was yesterday. I'd call with my cell phone, but reception's terrible down here. Yeah, that's it. I just need to call someone. I'm gonna go outside. Well, that didn't work so well. As the tingle of fear fades, I'm feeling a little ridiculous for being scared at all. As I looked in the mirror before I went out, but I didn't shave the 2-day stubble I've grown. I figured I was just going out for a quick cell phone call. Sorry. I did change my shirt though, because it was lunchtime and I guess that I'd run into at least one person I knew. That didn't end up happening. I wish it did. When I went out, I opened the door to my small apartment slowly. A small feeling of apprehension had somehow already lodged itself into me for some indefinable reason. I chalked it up to having not spoken to anyone but myself for a day or two. I peered down the dingy gray hallway, made dingier by the fact that it was a basement hallway. On one end, a large metal door led to the building's furnace room. It was locked, of course. 2 dreary soda machines stood by it. I bought a soda from one of the first day I moved in, but it had a 2-year-old expiration date. I'm fairly sure nobody knows those machines are even down here, or my cheap landlady just doesn't care to get them restocked. I closed my door softly and walked the other direction, taking care not to make a sound. I have no idea why I chose to do that, but it was fun giving into the strange impulse not to break the drowning hum of the soda machines, at least for the moment. I got to the stairwell and took the stairs up to the building's front door. I looked through the heavy door's small square window and received quite the shock. It was definitely not lunchtime. City gloom hung over the dark street outside, and the traffic lights at the intersection in the distance blinked yellow. Dim clouds, purple and black from the glow of the city, hung overhead. Nothing moved, save the few sidewalk trees that shifted in the wind. I remember shivering, though I wasn't cold. Maybe it was the wind outside. I could vaguely hear it through the metal door, and I knew it was that unique kind of late night wind. The kind that was constant, cold, and quiet, save for the rhythmic music it made as it passed through countless unseen trees. I decided not to go outside. Hmm. Instead, I lifted my cell phone to the door's little window and checked the signal meter. The bars filled up to the meter and I smiled. Time to hear someone else's voice, I remember thinking, relieved. It was such a strange thing to be afraid of nothing. I shook my head, laughing at myself silently. I hit speed dial for my best friend Amy's number and held the phone up to my ear. It rang once, but then it stopped. Nothing happened. I listened to the silence for a good 20 seconds, then hung up. I frowned and then looked at the signal meter again, still full. I went to dial her number again, but the phone rang in my hand, startling me. I put it up to my ear. Hello? I asked, immediately fighting down a small shock at hearing the first spoken voice in days, even if it was my own. I hadn't gotten used to the drowning hum of the building's inner workings. I had gotten used to the drowning hum of the building's inner workings, my computer, and the soda machines in the hallway. There was no response to my greeting at first, but then suddenly, finally, a voice came. Hey, said a clear male voice, obviously of a college age like me. Who's this? John, I replied, confused. Oh, sorry, wrong number, he replied, then hung up. I lowered the phone slowly and leaned in against the thick brick wall of the stairwell. That was strange. I looked at my received calls list, but the number was unfamiliar. Before I could think on it further, the phone rang loudly, shocking me yet again. This time, I looked at the caller before I answered. It was another unfamiliar number this time. I held the phone up to my ear, but said nothing. I heard nothing but the general background of noise of a phone. Then a familiar voice broke my tension. John? Was the single word in Amy's voice. I breathed a sigh of relief. Hey, it's you, I replied. Who else would it be? She responded. Oh, the number. I'm at a party on 7th Street and my phone died just as you called me. This is someone else's phone, obviously. Oh, okay, I said. Where are you? She asked. My eyes glanced over the drab whitewashed cylinder block walls and the heavy metal door with a small window. At my building, I sighed, just feeling cooped up. I didn't realize it was so late. You should come here, she said, laughing. Nah, I don't feel like looking for some strange place by myself in the middle of the night, I said, looking out the window at the silent, windy street. That secretly scared me just a tiny bit. I think I'm just gonna go keep working or go to bed. Nonsense, she replied. I can come get you. Your building is close to 7th Street, right? How drunk are you? I asked lightheartedly. You know where I live. Oh, of course, she said abruptly. I guess I can't get there by walking, huh? You could if you wanted to waste half an hour, I told her. Right, she said. Okay, have to go. Good luck with your work. I lowered the phone once more, looking to the numbers flash as the call ended. Then the droning silence suddenly reasserted itself in my ears. The two strange calls and the eerie street outside just drove home my aloneness in this empty stairwell. Perhaps from having seen too many scary movies, I had the sudden and inexplicable idea that something could look in the door's window and see me. Some sort of horrible entity that hovered at the edge of aloneness, just waiting to creep up on unsuspecting people that strayed too far from the other human beings. I knew the fear was irrational, but nobody else was around, so I jumped down the stairs, ran down the hallway into my room, and closed the door as swiftly as I could while still staying silent. Like I said, I feel a little ridiculous for being scared of nothing, and the fear is already faded. Writing this down helps a lot. It makes me realize that nothing is wrong. It filters out half-formed thoughts and fears and leaves only cold, hard facts. It's late. I got a call from a wrong number and Amy's phone died, so she called me back from another number. Nothing is strange. Still, there was something a little off about that conversation. I know it could have just been the alcohol she'd had, or was it even her that seemed off to me? Or was it? Yes, that was it. I didn't realize it until this moment, writing these things down. I knew writing things down would help. She said she was at a party, but I could only hear silence in the background. Of course, that doesn't mean anything in particular, as she could have just walked outside to make the call. No, that couldn't be it either. I didn't hear the wind. I need to see if the wind is still blowing. Monday. I forgot to finish writing last night. I'm not sure what I expected to see when I ran up the stairwell and looked out at the heavy metal door's window. I'm feeling ridiculous. Last night's fear seems hazy and unreasonable to me now. I can't wait to go out into the sunlight. I'm going to check my email, shave, shower, and finally get out of here. Wait, I think I heard something. It was thunder. The whole sunlight and fresh air thing didn't happen. I went outside into the stairwell and up the stairs, only to find disappointment. The heavy metal door's little window only showed flowing water as torrential rain slammed against it. Only a very dim, gloomy light filtered in through the rain, but at least I knew it was daytime. Even if it was a gray, sickly, wet day, I tried looking out the window and waiting for the lightning to illuminate the gloom, but the rain was too heavy and I couldn't make out anything more than vague, weird shapes moving at odd angles in the waves washing down the window. Disappointed, I turned around, but I didn't want to go back to my room. Instead, I wandered further up the stairs, past the first floor and the second. The stairs ended at the third floor, the highest room in the building. I looked through the glass that ran up the outer wall of the stairwell, but it was that warped, thick kind that scatters the light. Not that there was much to see through the rain to begin with. I opened the stairwell door and wandered down the hallway. The 10 or so thick wooden doors, painted blue a long time ago, were all closed. I listened as I walked, but it was the middle of the day, so I wasn't surprised that I heard nothing but the rain outside. As I stood there in the dim hallway listening to the rain, I had the strange, fleeting impression that the doors were standing like silent granite monoliths erected by some ancient, forgotten civilization for some unfathomable guardian purpose. Lightning flashed, and I could have sworn that for just a moment, the old grainy blue wood looked just like rough stone. I laughed at myself for letting my imagination get the best of me, but then it occurred to me that the dim gloom and lightning must mean that there was a window somewhere in the hallway. A vague memory surfaced, and I suddenly recalled that the third floor had an alcove and an inset window hallway halfway down the floor's hallway. Excited to look out into the rain and possibly see another human being, I quickly walked over to the alcove, finding a large, thin glass window. Rain washed down it, as with the front door's window, but I could open this one. I reached a hand out to slide it open, but hesitated. I had the strangest feeling that if I opened that window, I would see something absolutely horrifying on the other side. Everything's been so odd lately. So I came up with a plan, and I came back here to get what I needed. I don't seriously think anything will come of it, but I'm bored. It's raining, and I'm going stir crazy. I came back to get my webcam. The cord isn't long enough to reach the third floor by any means, so instead I'm going to hide it in between the two soda machines in the dark end of my basement hallway, run the wire along the wall and under my door, and put black duct tape over the wire to blend in with the plastic strip that runs along the base of the hallway's walls. I know this is silly, but I don't have anything better to do. Well, nothing happened. I propped open the hallway to stairwell door. First, steeled myself, then flung the heavy door wide open and ran like hell down the stairs to my room and slammed the door. I watched the webcam on my computer intently, seeing the hallway outside my door and most of the stairwell. I'm watching it right now, and I don't see anything interesting. I just wish the camera's position was different so that I could see out the front door. Hey, somebody's online. Sorry, that actually really spooked me because as soon as I read that, hey, somebody's online, I get a notification that
They
Danielle
started
was
playing
playing
Lethal
mute.
Company.
I was like,
Yeah.
I
Yeah,
was
I
like,
know.
oh,
Yeah, they've all been like joining as we've been.
kind of. I was like, kind of spooked me a little bit. Not gonna lie.
Someone's online. What?
They are.
How'd you know?
Like really,
How'd you
really
know?
bad timing. Really bad timing. I got out an older, less functional webcam that I had in my closet to video chat with my friend online. I couldn't really explain to him why I wanted to video chat, but it felt good to see another person's face. I couldn't talk very long, and we didn't talk about anything meaningful, but I feel much better. My strange fear has almost passed. I would feel completely better, but there was something odd about our conversation. I know that I've said that everything has seemed odd, but still, he was very vague in his responses. I couldn't recall one specific thing he said, no particular name or place or event, but he did ask for my email address to keep in touch. Wait, I just got an email. I'm about to go out. I'm about to go out. I just got an email from Amy that asked me to meet her for dinner at the place we usually go to. I do love pizza, and I've just been eating random food from my poorly stocked fridge for days, so I can't wait. Again, I feel ridiculous about the odd couple of days I've been having. I should destroy this journal when I get back. Oh, another email. Oh my god, I almost left the email and opened the door. I almost opened the door. I almost opened the door, but I read the email first. It was from a friend I hadn't heard from in a long time, and it was sent to a huge number of emails that must have been every person he had saved in his address list. It had no subject in it, and it said simply, "Seen with your own eyes. Don't trust them, they." What the hell is that supposed to mean? The words shocked me, and I keep going over and over them. It is a desperate email sent just as something happened. The words are obviously cut off without finishing. On any other day, I would have dismissed this as spam from a computer virus or something, but the words, "seen with your own eyes." I can't help but read over this journal and think back over the last few days and realize that I have not seen another person with my own eyes or talked to another person face to face. The webcam conversation with my friend was so strange, so vague, so eerie. Now that I think about it, was it eerie? Or was it the fear clouding my memory? My mind toys with the progression of events I've written here, pointing out that I may not have been presented with one single fact that I did not specifically give out unsuspectingly. The random wrong number that I got my name in the subsequent strange return call from Amy. That friend that asked me for my email address, I messaged him first when I saw him online, and then I got my first email a few minutes later a few minutes after that conversation. Oh my god, that phone call with Amy. I said over the phone. I said that I was within half an hour's walk of 7th Street. They know I'm near there. What if they're trying to find me? Where is everyone else? Why haven't I seen or heard anyone else in days? No, no, this is crazy. This is absolutely crazy. I need to calm down. This madness needs to end. I don't know what to think. I ran about my apartment furiously, holding my cell phone up to every corner to see if I got a signal through the heavy walls. Finally, in the tiny bathroom near one ceiling corner, I got a single bar. Holding my phone there, I sent a text message to every number on my list, not wanting to betray anything about my unfounded fears. I simply sent, "You seen anyone face to face lately?" At that point, I just wanted any reply back. I didn't care what the reply was or if I embarrassed myself. I tried to call someone a few times, but I couldn't get my head high enough, and I brought my cell phone down even an inch. And if I brought my cell phone down even an inch, it lost signal. Then I remembered the computer and rushed over to it, instant messaging everyone online. Most were idle or away from their computer. Nobody responded. My messages grew more frantic, and I started telling people where I was and to stop by in person for a host of barely passable reasons. I didn't care about anything by that point. I just needed to see another person. I also tore apart my apartment looking for something that I might have missed. Some way to contact another human being without opening the door. I know it's crazy. I know it's unfounded. But what if? What if I just needed to be sure? I taped the phone to the ceiling just in case. Tuesday. The phone rang. Exhausted from last night's rampage, I must have fallen asleep. I woke up to the phone ringing and ran into the bathroom, stood on the toilet and flipped open the phone taped to the ceiling. It was Amy, and I feel so much better. She was really worried about me, and apparently she had been trying to contact me since the last time I talked to her. She's coming over now, and yes, she knows where I am without me telling her. I feel so embarrassed. I am definitely throwing this journal away before anyone sees it. I don't even know why I'm writing it all now. Maybe it's just because it's the only communication I've had at all since God knows when. I look like hell, too. I looked in the mirror before I came back in here. My eyes are sunken, my stubble is thicker, and I just look generally unhealthy. My apartment is trash, but I'm not going to clean it up. I think I need someone else to see what I've been through. These past few days have not been normal. I am not I am not one to imagine things. I know I have been the victim of extreme probability. I probably missed seeing another person a dozen times. I just happened to go out when it was late at night or the middle of the day when everyone's gone. Everything's perfectly fine. I know this. Plus, I found something in the closet last night that has helped me tremendously. A television. I set it up just before I wrote this, and it's on in the background. Television has always been an escape for me, and it reminds me that there's a world beyond these dingy brick walls. I'm glad Amy is the one that responded to me after last night's frantic pestering of everyone I could contact. She's been my best friend for years. She doesn't know it, I count the I count the day that I met her among one of the few moments of true happiness in my life. I remember that warm summer day fondly. It's excuse me. It seems a different reality from this dark, rainy, lonely place. I feel like I spent days sitting in that playground, much too old to play, just talking with her and hanging around doing nothing at all. And I still feel like I can go back to that moment sometimes. And it reminds me that this damn place is not all that there is. Finally, a knock at the door. I thought it was odd that I couldn't see her through the camera I hid between the two soda machines. I figured it was just bad positioning. Like when I couldn't see out the front door. I should have known. I should have known after the knock. I yelled through the door jokingly that I had the camera between the soda machines because I was embarrassed myself that I had taken this paranoia so far. After I did that, I saw her image walk over to the camera and look down at it. She smiled and waved. "Hey," she said to the camera brightly, giving it a wry look. It's weird, I know," I said into the mic attached to my computer. I've had a weird few days. "Must have," she said. "Open the door, John." I hesitated. How could I be sure? "Hey, humor me for just a second," I told her through the mic. "Tell me one thing about us. Just prove to me that you're you." She gave the camera a weird look. All right, she said slowly, thinking. "We met randomly at a playground when we were both way too old to be there." I sighed deeply as reality returned and fear faded. God, I'd been so ridiculous. Of course it was Amy. The day wasn't anywhere in the That day wasn't anywhere in the world except in my memory. I'd never mentioned it to anyone, not out of embarrassment, but out of a strange secret nostalgia and a longing for those days to return. If there was some unknown force at work trying to trick me, as I feared, there was no way they could know about that day. Haha, alright, I'll explain everything, I told her. Be right here, be right there. I ran into the small bathroom and fixed my hair as best as I could. I looked like hell, but she would understand. Snickering at my own unbelievable behavior and the mess I've made of this place, I walked to the door. I put my hand on the doorknob, and gave the mess one last look. So ridiculous, I thought. My eyes traced over the half-eaten food lying on the ground, the overflowing trash bin, and the bed I'd tipped to the side looking for God knows what. I almost turned to the door and opened it, but my eyes fell on one last thing: the old webcam that I used for that eerily vacant chat with my friend. And its silent black sphere lay haphazardly tossed to the side, its lens pointed at the table where this journal lay. An overwhelming terror took me as I realized that if something could see through that camera, it would have seen what I just wrote about that day. I asked her for any one thing about us, and she chose the only thing in the world I thought they or it did not know. But it did. It did know. It could have been watching me the whole time. I didn't open the door. I screamed. I screamed in uncontrollable terror. I stomped on the old webcam on the floor. The door shook and the doorknob tried to turn, but I didn't hear Amy's voice through the door. Was the basement door was the basement door made to keep out drafts too thick? Or was Amy not outside? What could have been trying to get in if not her? What the hell is out there? I saw her on my computer camera through the camera outside. I heard her on the speakers through the camera outside, but was it real? How can I know? She's gone now. I screamed and shouted for help. I piled up everything in my apartment against the door. Friday. At least I think it's Friday. I broke everything electronic. I smashed my computer to pieces. Every single thing on there could have been accessed by network access, or worse, altered. I'm a programmer, I know. Every little piece of information I gave out since this started, my name, my email, my location, none of it came back from outside until I gave it out. I've been doing over and over. I've been going over and over what I wrote. I've been pacing back and forth, alternating between stark terror and overpowering disbelief. Sometimes I'm absolutely uncertain some fathom entity is dead set on the simple goal of getting to me outside. Back to the beginning with the phone call from Amy, she was effectively asking me to open the door and go outside. I keep running through it in my mind. One point of view says I've acted like a madman, and all of this extreme convergence of probability, never going outside at the right times by pure luck, never seeing another person by pure chance, getting a random nonsense email from one computer virus at just the right time. The other point of view says that extreme convergence of probability is the reason that whatever is out there hasn't gotten me already. I keep thinking, I never opened the window on the third floor. I never opened that front door until the incredibly stupid stunt with the hidden camera, after which I ran straight to my room and slammed the door. I haven't opened my own solid door since I flung open the front door of the building. Whatever's out there, if anything's out there, never made an appearance in the building before I opened the front door. Maybe the reason it wasn't in the building already was it was elsewhere, getting everyone else. And then I waited until I betrayed my existence by trying to call Amy, a call which didn't work, until it called me and asked me my name. Terror literally overwhelms me every time I try to fit the pieces of this nightmare together. That email, short, cut off. Was it from someone trying to get word out? Some friendly voice desperately trying to warn me before it came? Seen with my own eyes, don't trust them. Exactly what I've been so suspicious of. It could have it could have masterful control of all things electronic, practicing its insidious deception to trick me into coming outside. Why can't it get in? It knocked on the door. It must have some solid presence. The door. The image of those doors in the upper hallway as guardian monoliths flashes back into my mind every time I trace this path of thoughts. If there is some phantom entity trying to get me out to go outside, maybe it can't get through doors. I keep thinking back over all the books I've read or movies I've seen, trying to generate some explanation for this. Doors have always been such intense of human imagination, always seen as wards or portals of special importance, or perhaps the door is just too thick. I know that I couldn't bash through any of the doors in that building, let alone the heavy basement ones. Aside from that, the real question is, why does it even want me? If it just wanted to kill me, it could do it in any number of ways, including just waiting until I starve to death. What if it doesn't want to kill me? What if it has some far more horrific in fate in store for me? God, what can I do to escape this nightmare? A knock on the door. I told the people on the other side that I needed a minute to think and I'll come out. I'm really writing this down so I can figure out what to do. At least at the time I heard voices. My paranoia, and yes, I recognize that I'm being paranoid, has me thinking all sorts of ways that their voices could be faked electronically. There could be nothing but speakers outside simulating human voices. Did it really take them 3 days to come talk to me? Amy is supposedly out there, along with 2 policemen and a psychiatrist. Maybe it took them 3 days to think of what to say to me. The psychiatrist's claim could be pretty convincing if I decided to think this has all been a crazy misunderstanding and not some entity trying to trick me into opening the door. The psychiatrist had an older voice, authoritarian but still caring. I liked it. I'm desperate just to see some with my own eyes. He says I have something called cyber-psychosis, and I'm just one of the nationwide epidemic of thousands of people having breakdowns triggered by a suggestive email that got through somehow. I swear he said got through somehow. I think he means spread throughout the country inexplicably, but I'm incredibly suspicious that the entity slipped up and revealed something. He said I'm a part of a wave of emergent behavior, that a lot of other people are having the same problem with the same fears, even though we've never communicated. That neatly explains the strange email about eyes that I got. I didn't get the original triggering email. I got a descendant of it. My friend could have broken down too and tried to warn everyone he knew against his paranoid fears. That's how the problem spreads, the psychiatrist claims. I could have spread it too, with my texts and instant messages online to everybody I know. One of these people might be melting down right now after being triggered by something I sent them. Something they might interpret any way they want. Something like a text saying seen anyone face to face lately? The psychiatrist told me that he didn't want to lose another one. That people like me are intelligent, and that's our downfall. We draw connections so well that we draw them even when they shouldn't be there. He said it's easy to get caught up in paranoia in our fast-paced world, in a constantly changing place where more and more of our interaction is simulated. I have to give him one thing. It's a great explanation. It neatly explains everything. It perfectly explains everything, in fact. I have every reason to shake off this nightmarish fear that something or consciousness or being out there wants me to open the door so it can capture me for some horrible fate worse than death. It would be foolish, after hearing that explanation, to stay in here until I starve to death, just to spite the entity that might have got everyone else. It would be foolish to think that. After hearing that explanation, I might be one of the last people left alive on an empty world, hiding in my secure basement room, spitting some unthinkable, deceptive entity, spiting some unthinkable, deceptive entity just by refusing to be captured. Is a perfect explanation for every single strange thing I've heard or seen. And I have every reason in the world to just let all my fears go and open the door. That's exactly why I'm not going to. How can I be sure? How can I know what's real and what's deception? All of these damn things with their wires and their signals that originate from some unseen origin, they're not real. I can't be sure. Signals through a camera, faked video, deceptive phone calls, emails, even the television lying broken on the floor. How can I possibly know it's real? It's just signals, waves, light. The door. It's bashing on the door. It's trying to get in. What insane mechanical contrivance could it be using to simulate the sound of men attacking the heavy wood so well? At least I'll finally see it with my eyes with my own eyes. There's nothing left in here for it to deceive me with. I've ripped apart everything else. It can't deceive my eyes, can it? Seen with your own eyes, don't trust them Wait, was that desperate message telling me to trust my eyes or warning me about my eyes too? Oh my god. What's the difference between a camera and my eyes? They both turn light into electrical signals. They're the same. I can't be deceived. I have to be sure. I have to be sure. Date unknown. I calmly asked for a paper and pen, day in and day out, until it finally gave them to me. Not that it matters. What am I going to do? Poke my eyes out? The bandages feel like part of me now. The pain is gone. I figured this will be one of my last chances to write legibly, as without my sight to correct mistakes, my hands will slowly forget the motions involved. This is a sort of self indulgence, this writing. It's a relic of another time, because I'm certain everyone left in this world is dead, or something far worse. I sit against the padded wall day in and day out. The entity brings me food and water. It masks itself as a kind nurse, an unsympathetic doctor. I think it knows that my hearing has sharpened considerably now that I live in darkness. It fakes conversations in the hallway on the off chance that I might overhear. One of the nurses talks about having a baby soon. One of the doctors lost his wife in a car accident. None of it matters. None of it's real. None of it gets to me, not like she does. That's the worst part. The part I almost can't handle. The thing comes to me. That thing comes to me, masquerading as Amy. Its recreation is perfect. It sounds exactly like Amy, feels exactly like her, and even produces a reasonable facsimile of tears that it makes me feel on its lifelike cheeks. When it first dragged me here, it. Oh, sorry, my headphones are dying. When it first dragged me here, it told me things I wanted to hear. It told me, it told me that she loved me, that she always loved me, that I didn't understand why I did this, that we could still have a life together if only I would stop insisting that I was being deceived. It wanted me to believe. No, it needed me to believe that she was real. I almost fell for it, I really did. I doubted myself for the longest time in the end, though it was all too perfect, too flawless, and too real. The false Amy used to come every day, and then every week, and finally stopped coming altogether. But I don't think the entity will give up. I think the waiting game is just another one of its gambits. I will resist it for the rest of my life if I have to. I don't know what happened to the rest of the world, but I do know that this thing needs me to fall for its deceptions. If it needs that, then maybe, just maybe, I am a thorn in its agenda. Maybe Amy is still alive out there somewhere, kept alive only by my will to resist the deceiver. I hold on to that hope, rocking back and forth in my cell to pass the time. I will never give in. I will never break. I am a hero. The doctor read the paper the patient had scribbled on. It was only barely readable, written in the shaky script of someone who could not see. He wanted to smile at the man's steadfast resolve, a reminder of the human will to survive, but he knew that the patient was completely delusional. After all, a sane man would have fallen for the deception long ago. The doctor wanted to smile. He wanted to whisper words of encouragement to the delusional man. He wanted to scream, but the nerve filaments wrapped around his head and into his eyes made him do otherwise. His body walked into the cell like a puppet and told the patient once more that he was wrong and that there was nobody trying to deceive him.
Yo.
Yo, that one ended in such a crazy way. That one made me feel crazy.
Dude, I need to be put in a padded room after hearing that shit.
After hearing that, yeah.
What the fuck?
Okay, first of all, the fact that the twist at the end and it is actually like an entity going in there and telling him that it's all fake, that it's all like it's that he is just delusional. crazy.
So fucked up.
And it's the fact that he's like, am I going crazy? No, I can't be. But he's not going crazy.
No.
All of this stuff that he's hearing is real.
And he knows that. Even though he has the doubt in the back of his mind, he's like, how can I keep doubting it, yet the only thing I know for sure is that it's a possibility.
Yeah. Oh, I'm not gonna lie though, and I feel like this one is another like one like before though, where it's like almost like a real-ish kind of thing, where it's like obviously people like this is a real thing that people go through sometimes,
right.
Where it's like, like sometimes you go down a rabbit hole and feed into all these delusions that you don't know if it's real or not.
Mm-hmm.
And I love the twist of it, like of taking that real situation and adding like a supernatural twist into it.
Mm-hmm.
That's sick.
Mm-hmm. And it's also
spooky.
I think the way it's written is written really well, just because also you go back and forth between being like, obviously it's not, but then you hear how they talk, like keeps talking about it, and it's like, well, like his intuition is telling him everything that his brain's not.
Mm-hmm.
And you're like, okay, well, so like maybe.
Yeah, that one is.
That one's got me thinking about a lot of things right now.
Yeah, which is really unfortunate. Yeah, that one. I feel like that one is one of those ones where it's like not like a monster scary kind of thing, but like
it's worse.
Like the human mind is fucking crazy.
Yeah, that's worse. That's way worse.
Yeah,
somehow
because it's almost too realistic.
Yeah, well, also just like I don't even know, like the thought of having, okay, so imagine you're having this constant paranoia, constant, and you're like trying everything you can think of to like dismiss the paranoia, and the only thing that makes you dismiss it is when you're writing it down, because you're like, well, now that I write it, it's like it doesn't sound that crazy. But then as you keep writing, you keep thinking of like more details about things happen, and you're like, well, like, so like, oh, actually, okay. It's weirder now that I wrote it down, because I'm seeing all of the details I saw before or didn't see before, where you were like, oh, well, I was just writing this down to make myself feel better. Like he even a couple times mentioned, he was like, I'm going to just throw this journal away. And then kept writing. They kept writing. Just because he's like, so like, I know I said it was nothing. I know I said it was nothing. But then the weirdest thing happened. I got this fucking email. Dude.
I had this fucking email?
No.
Dude.
That's my worst nightmare.
Yeah, I will say, I think the part that gave me the most chills was that email.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I didn't like that one bit.
I need to pull it back up. Like, I did not like that email.
No. Not one bit.
Hold on, let me see.
Woo. Sorry, guys. I know you've seen me yawn like 10 times since this podcast has started. Don't say shit. If you do, you're racist. You heard it here first, folks.
Got 'em. Seen it with your own eyes. Don't trust them, they. That.
Yeah.
Yuck.
Don't trust them, they. They what?
They what? Dude, I don't know. I feel like the reason that got to me is because the wording of it feels almost like it's hinting at. Yeah. Well, that, and it's almost like hinting at something that's not human in a way, because it's like nobody would write it like that, Yeah. So I think it does kind of. It's almost like a very slight foreshadowing of like.
It's like very cryptic. Yeah. Yeah. Like, not like, but also that you can see it was like a mass email sent out that was that, and it just looked so like. Yeah, like cryptic almost, just randomly sent out, and it was sent to so many people. Yeah, no, dude. I'd be like, that person is definitely going to be on forensics files, because that is not a normal... It's not a normal fucking email to send.
Yuck.
That one makes me
Okay.
feel an inner yuck, just so we're clear.
Yeah.
We're going to call that feeling inner yuck, chat.
Inner yuck.
Can I get an inner yuck in chat, please? Oh.
So the good thing
know
is,
what I'm thinking about when I go to bed.
I guess it's a good thing for me that these next two are very short because I'm struggling, y'all.
I'm struggling. It's great.
So
the next episode we have, I'll be reading all most of it.
Yeah.
Fine. We'll trade.
That'd be fine.
That's fine. It's fine.
So the second to last story, it should only take me a couple minutes to read. It's called Gateway of the Mind, written by an anonymous author.
Good.
And it says on here this one should only take me about 2 minutes to read, so thank God. Okay. Here we go. In 1983, a team of deeply pious scientists conducted a radical experiment in an undisclosed facility. The scientists had theorized that a human without access to any senses or any ways to perceive stimuli would be able to perceive the presence of God. They believed that the five senses clouded our awareness of eternity, and without them, a human could actually establish contact with God by thought. An elderly man who claimed to have nothing left to live for was the only test subject to volunteer. To purge him of all his senses, the scientists performed a complex operation in which every sensory nerve connected to the brain was surgically severed. Although the test subject remained full muscular function, he could not see, hear, taste, smell, or feel. With no possible way to communicate with or even sense the outside world, he was alone with his thoughts. Scientists monitored him as he spoke aloud about his state of mind in jumbled, slurred sentences that he couldn't even hear. After 4 days, the man claimed to be hearing hushed, unintelligible voices in his head. Assuming it was an onset of psychosis, the scientists paid little attention to the man's concerns. 2 days later, the man cried that he could hear his dead wife speaking with him, and even more, he could communicate back. The scientists were intrigued, but they were not convinced until the subject started naming dead relatives of the scientists. He repeated personal information to them that the scientists that only their dead spouses and parents would have known. At this point, a sizable portion of scientists left the study. After a week of conversing with the deceased through his thoughts, the subject became distressed, saying the voices were overwhelming. In every waking moment, his consciousness was bombarded by hundreds of voices that refused to leave him alone. He frequently threw himself against the wall, trying to elicit a pain response. He begged the scientist for his sedatives so that he could escape the voices by sleeping. This tactic worked for 3 days, until he started having severe night terrors. The subject repeatedly said that he could see and hear the deceased in his dreams.
God.
Only a day later, the subject began to scream and claw at his non-functional eyes, hoping to sense something in the physical world. The hysterical subject now said that the voices of the dead were deafening and hostile, speaking of hell and the end of the world. At one point he yelled, "No heaven, no forgiveness," for 5 hours straight.
Oh, fuck.
He continually begged to be killed, but the scientists were convinced that he was close to establishing contact with God. On another day, the subject could no longer form coherent sentences. Seemingly mad, he started to bite off chunks of his flesh from his arm. The scientists rushed into the test chamber and restrained him to a table so that he could not kill himself. After a few hours of being tied down, the subject halted his struggling and screaming. He stared blankly at the ceiling as teardrops silently streaked across his face. For 2 weeks, the subject had to be manually rehydrated due to his constant crying. Eventually, he turned his head and, despite his blindness, made focused eye contact with the scientist for the first time in the study. He whispered, "I have spoken with God, and he has abandoned us," and his vital signs stopped. There was no apparent cause of death.
That's not allowed. Okay.
I have spoken with God, and he has abandoned us.
First off, If a man who couldn't see turned locked eyes with me
looked
and
locked
said, I've
eyes with me.
spoken with God, first I'd be like, hmm? Then he says, and he's abandoned us.
No.
What do you mean? Where did he go? He said that? Or he wasn't there? What do you mean? He gave up? What did you mean?
But also him, for 5 hours straight, him yelling, no heaven, no forgiveness.
5 hours. Imagine me and the scientist. They're like, you have to stay here and watch him. I'd be sitting there like, yo, I want to go home. I don't want to be here.
I don't want to be here anymore. I got a basketball game tomorrow. I'm sorry. That's the only thing I can think of.
Dude, no fucking shot. No
yeah,
fucking
that
shot.
one is a rough one because it's also like I genuinely can't even imagine being in that position though of like not being able to feel, hear, touch, taste anything.
No, yeah. Well, also like he started hearing voices first. Right?
Yeah.
Which one terrifying when you can't hear.
Yeah.
To start with, which you know for sure you can't hear. And then there's more and more and more. And then it's like you're hearing hundreds of voices. And then when you think that's bad, you start sleeping finally because they give you medicine you're begging for just to sleep. And then you start seeing them while you're sleeping.
Incredibly hard read.
That one was short and awful. That one was
I'm not gonna
lie. For me.
See, that one's crazy. That one's crazy to me because that was the shortest one, and it was like felt the hardest like the most intense.
Yeah.
Dude, I just
spoke to God. He's abandoned us, and then he flatlined. Wow. Shit. But yeah, as one of those scientists, I'd be like, why did we do this fucking study? Why did we decide this was a good idea? Oh, we got our fucking answer. Is this what we wanted? Is this what
dude, imagine, like, my thing now is, like, imagine being that one scientist, like, he looks you dead in your eyes and says, I've spoken with God and he's abandoned us. And you have to go tell your colleagues, you're like, hey, that guy that we took all of his senses away said he spoke to God and he abandoned us. What do we do?
Yeah, like, so we talked to God, right?
So we talked to God, right?
He abandoned us.
He
said he was gone. Just gone.
Yeah.
So next,
I was say that was one of those. Hey God, I hate to bother you, but he was bothered.
Oh, he was pissed.
He said,
was bothered. Oh, don't.
He was
no
was
forgiveness.
Not doing so well.
No heaven.
Abandoned.
Yeah, that's a fucking crazy read. Dude. No.
Yeah. I was going to say, that one was also one of the ones I was very excited to read to you just because I know how short it was, but it was one of those ones where I was like,
it was a heavy hitter. Yeah. Oh, God.
I will say, and that one is proof that, like, length isn't always, like, necessarily equated to
So you're quality. Saying size doesn't matter, is what you're saying?
Size doesn't matter, guys. Quote of the podcast. Let's go.
Size doesn't matter. That's what I call the podcast.
Yeah.
Dude.
Okay.
That one I'm going to be thinking about even more. Thanks for that. Go ahead.
So this one, it has an overview here for you, but I am not going to read the overview for you.
Perfect.
We're just gonna go in, and you're gonna be completely surprised as we go in.
Cool.
So
perfect.
This one is quite possibly probably one of the most popular like creepypasta stories, other than like Jeff the Killer Slenderman, whatever.
Right. The classic.
It is Candle Cove.
We've been waiting for this one.
I was gonna say I've been so excited to read this story to you guys because I was talking to Des about this like a while before we decided to do this on the podcast, and I just kept pushing it off to read it to them, but we're here today, and
we are gathered here today without God and with Candle Cove. Let's get it.
Well, where do we at Candle Cove right now? Sorry. So for context, as I'm reading this, this isn't written in a story format. It is written in a like forum, like where people are like talking to
Like
each
a
other, kind of
chat
like
for like
Reddit.
Reddit. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, something like that. So this is from Net Nostalgia Forum, Television Local. First part, it says Skyshow 033. Subject: Candle Cove Local Kids Show. Does anyone remember this kids show? It was called Candle Cove, and I must have been 6 or 7. I never found reference to it anywhere, so I think it was on a local station around 1971 or 1972. I lived in Ironton at the time, and I don't remember which station, but I do remember it was on a weird time, like 4 p.m. Mike Painter responds, says, Candle Cove Local Kid Show. It seems really familiar to me. I grew up outside of Ashland and was 9 years old in 72. Candle Cove, was it about pirates? I remember a pirate marionette at the mouth of a cave talking to a little girl. Skyshow responds, yes, okay, I'm not crazy. I remember Pirate Percy. I was always kind of scared of him. He looked like he was built from parts of other dolls. Real low budget. His head was an old porcelain baby doll. Looked like an antique that didn't belong on the body.
Mm-mm.
I don't remember what station this was on. I don't think it was WSTF though. Jaren 2005 responds, sorry to resurrect this old thread, but I know exactly what show you mean. I know exactly what show you mean, Skyshow. I think Candle Cove ran only for a couple months in 71, not 72. I was 12 and I watched it a few times with my brother. It was on channel 58, whatever station that was. My mom would let me switch to it after the news. Let me see what I remember. It took place in Candle Cove, and it was about a little girl who imagined herself to be friends with pirates. The pirate ship was called the Laughingstock, and Pirate Percy wasn't a very good pirate because he got scared too easily, and there was Calliope music constantly playing. Don't remember the girl's name, Janice or Jade or something. I think it was Janice. Skyshow finally responds, thank you, Jaren. Memories flooded back when you mentioned the Laughingstock in channel 58. I remembered the bow of the ship was a wooden smiling face, with the lower jaw submerged. It looked like it was swallowing the sea, and it had that awful Ed Wynn voice and laugh. I especially remember how jarring it was when they switched from the wooden plastic model to the foam puppet version of the head that talked. Mike Painter responds, haha, I remember now too. Do you remember that part, Skyshow? You have to go inside. Skyshow responds, Mike, I got a chill reading that. Yes, I remember. That's what the ship always told Percy when there was a spooky place he had to go in, like a cave or a dark room where the treasure was. And the camera would push in on Laughingstock's face with each pause. You have to go inside. With his 2 eyes askew and that flopping foam jaw and the fishing line that opened and closed it. It looked so cheap and awful. You guys remember the villain? He had a face that was just a handlebar mustache above really tall, narrow teeth. And then, keep in mind, this person's name on this forum is Kevin Hart. He responds to the thread and says, I honestly thought the villain was Pirate Percy. I was about 5 when the show was on. Nightmare fuel. Jaren 2005 responds, that wasn't the villain, the puppet with the mustache. That was the villain's sidekick, Horace Horrible. He had a monocle too, but it was on top of the mustache. I used to think that he had only one eye. But yeah, the villain was another marionette, the Skin Taker. I can't believe what they let us watch back then.
No. Absolutely not.
Kevin Hart responds, Jesus H. Christ, the Skin Taker. What kind of kid show were we watching? I seriously could not look at the screen when the Skin Taker showed up. He just descended out of nowhere on his strings, just a dirty skeleton wearing that brown top hat and cape, and his eyes that were too big for his skull. Christ almighty. Skyshow responds, was it his top hat and cloak all sewn up crazily? Was that supposed to be children's skin? Mike Painter 65 responds, yeah, I think so. Remember, his mouth didn't open and close. His jaw just slid back and forth. I remember the little girl said, why does your mouth move like that? and the skin taker didn't look at the girl, but at the camera and said, "To grind your skin." Sky Shell responds, "I'm so relieved that other people remember this terrible show. I used to have this awful memory, a bad dream I had where the opening jingle ended, the show faded in from black, and all the characters were there, but the camera was just cutting to each of their faces and they were just screaming, and the puppets and marionettes were flailing spastically and just all screaming. The girl was just moaning and crying like she had been through hours of this. I woke up many times from that nightmare. I used to wet the bed when I had it." Kevin Hart responds, "I don't think that was a dream. I remember that. I remembered that was an episode." Sky Show responds, No, not possible. There was no plot or anything. I mean, just literally just standing in place, crying and screaming for the whole show." Kevin Hart responds, "Maybe I'm manufacturing the memory because you said that, but I swear to God, I remember seeing what you described. They just screamed." Jaren 2005 responds, "Oh God, yes, the little girl, Janice. I remember seeing her shake and the skin taker screaming through his gnashing teeth, his jaw connering so wildly I thought it would come off its wire hinges. I turned it off. It was the last time I watched. I ran to my brother and we didn't have the courage to turn it back on." Mike Painter 65 responds, "I visited my mom today at the nursing home. I asked her about when I was little in the early 70s when I was 8 or 9 and if she remembers a kid's show, Candle Cove. She said she was surprised I could remember that, and I asked why. And she said, because I used to think it was so strange that you said, 'I'm gonna go watch Candle Cove now, Mom,' and then you would tune the TV to static and just watch dead air for 30 minutes. You had such a big imagination with your little pirate show." Love the glasses. The glasses are off, you guys.
You know what that would do to my psyche?
I will say that I feel like that is a very recurring kind of thing with these stories. There's a lot of mental things going on.
If I want to throw up. If I asked my mom, like, "Hey, me and these other people were like talking about this show we remember watching as a kid. Do you remember me watching it?" And she was like, "You made that whole thing up. That was the craziest." I would be like, "Dude, I need you to untell me that shit right now." "What you mean static?" What is that?
What is that? But also, the crazy thing to me, though, is that the first time I ever heard this story, it gave me this, like, sick feeling of, like, nostalgia. Also, where I was like, they were talking about the pirate show and, like, the ship and everything, and I was like, and it's, like, one of the things. Yeah. Where it's like, it was like the fucking Kevin Hart was talking about, where it's like, maybe I just manufactured the idea of that because you said it, but I swear to God, I remember that. And that's one of the things that, like, I thought the first time I read this, where I was like, "Ugh, yuck," and I don't want it.
I hate that. And I hate that also.
I'm glad I saved that one for last, just because that is one of my favorite creepypasta stories ever.
Yuck.
It is
Remember
such a good one.
the inside yuck? Yeah, I'm feeling that again.
Yeah, I'm feeling that again. We're back to the inside yuck. The sequel to Back to the Future we never knew we needed.
No,
Sorry.
Absolutely not. The one we
Back to the inside yuck.
Yeah, that's probably what we were watching on channel 58, bro. Back to the inside
yuck.
Yeah, no.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like
that's just the podcast.
I feel like we should write a creepypasta. I feel like we could make a really good one.
I'm not a writer by any means, but, like, I can come up with some ideas.
I do the sprinkle the writer magic on it, but we come up with our story. I think we can make a good one. All right, tune in a couple podcasts when we read our creepypasta.
Don't hold us to that.
No, because if it doesn't happen, it was your fault. Not yours.
Yeah.
Yours.
No, yours.
Oh, me or them?
Anyways. Ew, Desi, that is... Your camera is cutting out so bad.
Oh, I was like, Brody, don't.
Just stuck on you staring at the camera. Desi, I'm freaking out. Do not. Because your camera was stuck on you just staring directly into the camera. And it stayed like that. And you started talking. No, because your camera stopped. Like you were talking, but your camera was stuck.
No, yuck. We can't. We gotta end the podcast, guys. This is too much.
End the podcast. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching this podcast.
Yeah, Brody, you're gonna go have panic attacks for a couple minutes. It's fine. Don't worry.
Yeah.
You fucking frightened me. I closed my eyes, so I thought you was gonna be like, "It's the pirate."
It's the pirate.
I'm just saying.
Oh yeah, Desi, the skin taker.
No. That is so nasty. They didn't even get creative with it. They just called him the skin taker. That is so yuck.
Yeah.
Not to yuck anybody's yum.
The thought of like him looking into the camera and going, to grind your skin.
Yeah, like clearly we know you're the skin taker. Don't be doing all that nasty shit, man. Did he eat it?
Shit, man.
I can't.
I think he made it into his hat.
So he made it into his hat. Make me feel better. Ew. That's worse than eating it. At least eating it would be like for nutrition. You just wanted a fashion accessory.
Is it nutritious? I don't know.
Skin. Don't me do that. I don't fucking know. More nutritious than a hat.
Let us know in the comments.
Go ahead and comment down below. Is skin nutritious? Yes or no? Yuck. So sorry for this one.
Alright, guys. With that being said, thank you guys so much for tuning in this week. Once again, I do apologize for stuttering through all of those so bad. But if you tune in next week, you'll get to hear Destiny stuttering.
You get to hear me stutter through the whole podcast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I won't be the only one doing it. But as always, we hope to see you guys next week.
Yep.
Make sure you like and subscribe. Yep. And turn on those notifications so you get notified every Monday when we upload a podcast.
Yep. We are also, posting the podcast on Spotify as right now. We're working on getting it on a couple different platforms, but it is available on Spotify if you just want to listen. I just think it's more fun for the YouTube thing because you get to see our faces.
You see our beautiful faces. The only downside to seeing it on YouTube is that you don't get to hear all the funny jokes that we make because it is unfortunately censored. Yeah. But if you listen to it on Spotify, it's not.
Yeah. Which, fortunately, we haven't had to censor a ton on YouTube yet, but yeah.
Well, we'll see.
We'll see. Yeah.
This one might be the one to get us.
For now. This one might catch up. I don't know if we can put Skin Taker.
I don't know if we can put
Go ahead, YouTube. Let me know if Skin Taker is not allowed in the chat. Thank you so much.
Yeah, YouTube, comment down below.
Yeah,
tell us.
President YouTube.
Mr. YouTube.
Mr. YouTube. Big YouTube. We need you to just go ahead and drop a comment. Go ahead and subscribe. Just go ahead and pay us if you want. That's fine. I don't mind. But anyways, till next week, y'all be so well.
Be so well.
I'm gonna sleep not so well, so
I'm gonna sleep not so well. But yeah, goodbye.
Bye.